Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Biz Essentials podcast. I'm your host, Veronica, and today we're going to be speaking with Beth. Beth is an expert at helping her clients communicate their message effectively through content creation, both on their website and in other print media. Why is that important? Because if you can communicate your message clearly and authentically, that is what builds relationships, and that is what gets you more clients. Not just any clients, but clients that truly resonate with you. If that sounds like something you might need for your brand or business, stick around and I'll be back right after this.
Tony Robbins once said, "No matter how many mistakes you make or how slow you progress, you are still way ahead of everyone who isn't trying." This is the Biz Essentials. You want to grow, get ahead, keep the spark. Here you'll get valuable insights and empowerment to grow personally and professionally. Isn't it about time you turn your dreams into successful passion projects? Learn how to be productive, be successful, be joyful, and more importantly, be yourself. The B Essentials. This is the Biz Essentials. And this is your host, Veronica of Veronica Ventures.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Veronica. How are you?
I'm doing well. So thank you so much for asking. Guys, thank you so much for joining me this morning. We are here with Beth. Beth, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
So I am a creative copywriter, and my company is called That's a Spade Copywriting Services. And I write for and with entrepreneurs and small businesses to honor their unique voice and to pin that voice to the page so that they can stand out from the masses and really attract the clients that they're excited to work with. So I write all kinds of copy for folks. I do a lot of website copy for all the website pages. I do sales pages. I write blogs. I write some email newsletters. I do a lot of bios for people because they don't like to write for themselves. And I also run a great program for people who like to do their own writing, because I understand that some people actually like to do that. And it's just to help them develop a creative practice so that they can feel confident and clear and feel really good about sitting down to write their content.
Wow, that sounds amazing. As you were talking, I was thinking about all the things that I need you to do. I'm like, oh wow, check, I need that. Check, I need that. It's so important to have an online presence, especially, and getting your name out there is important. And more importantly than that, distinguishing yourself among the masses, because there's so many people talking. How do we do it? How do we communicate our message so that people hear it?
Yes. So, that's such an interesting kind of open-ended question, because I think people, particularly people who work for themselves, are very caught up in where do I spend my time? And of course, that comes down to where is your audience? What do you have time to do? What's realistic? Some people will say you have to be everywhere. Some people will say, find the two places that work best for you. One of the things I always, I tell people, well, two things really, is that A, it's really great to be on social media, but tomorrow, if Mark Zuckerberg gets, arrested and thrown in jail and Facebook and Instagram shut down, we're all in trouble because we lose all of our material. So anything that you're doing should really drive people to your website, where you're going to get more SEO, like blogs, for instance, are a great tool for SEO. And speaking of SEO, people get very, they hear that word and they don't really understand. They're like, I need SEO. And it's like, well, you do to get people there. But then what are you going to say afterwards that people are going to go back because they want to read what you had to say? So, all right, that was kind of, I went around in a circle there. But so that's the first thing, is really to decide where you want to put your message and where does it really have to be. And then it comes down to being grounded in what you want to say. A lot of the times people worry, oh, can I say this? Should I say that? Or they get too caught up in like perfectionism or the grammar and the punctuation. Or something I hear from people often is that they're not good with brevity, that they just talk and talk and talk, or they talk one way and they don't write another way. So these are all things that having a writer can really help you with. To get your content down and to have your message and to really just kind of trust in what you're going to say and trust in who you are and the innate talents that you have, and how do you present them with a perspective that people see as fresh and new that no one else is saying.
That's so important. And for me, a little bit daunting, kind of scary. And then also kind of invigorating, if that makes any sense, because it is so important to make your message heard. And I guarantee you, if you feel like you have a message, there's somebody out there who needs to hear it. That's one of my personal beliefs. So what I hear from you is we definitely to make sure that we communicate ourselves authentically. That's number one. And be sure that we're communicating ourselves where our clients are most likely to hear us. Now, I've heard that before, that we really, really, really need to get people off of social media and to our website, captured in an email list, because, like you said, if any of those social media platforms went down, there goes your audience. You don't have those followers. They're just letting you borrow them for a little while. You have a program for people who do a DIY. Is there anything that you can tell us about what kind of content should be on our website for those of us who do want to try doing it on our own?
Sure. So I think so one of the things I run into too is that people are like, oh, I want to be a thought leader. But then they hesitate, right? Again, because A, are you clear on your message? And B, are you grounded in it so that you're confident to put it out there, and then deal with things like, the topics that people are concerned with are cancel culture. They're concerned with any kind of pushback. They want to put things out there and for people to say, oh, that's great, to get likes and this and that. But, you really want to kind of poke people in the bruise a little bit, right? You want to find where people have that weakness where you can help them build a strength. So when you get that sort of reaction, I always say, like, you need to step back and be more of like an analyst there. And how do you, have a conversation with those people? And, sometimes that's your client. Sometimes somebody who reacts because it's what they need, right? So that's one of the things. And, the other thing is practice, really. I suggest that people do some separate writing from their content writing so that they know how to get into that flow, right? We go through this thing all day long where we check off our tasks. I sent my emails. I did my follow-ups. I, worked on my calendar. All of these tactical sort of mechanical tasks. And then we go, oh, it's 2:00. I'm going to write my content now. And your mind is not in that creative place. Like, you have to do something to build that muscle. So I always say, go read someplace else. Maybe you need a cup of tea or a candle or music or a blanket, whatever it is, figure it out and, shift your mindset. So your mind learns that when these things are available, this is when it's time to be creative. So journaling helps, or, writing to prompts helps, or, any other type of writing rather than doing your daily business tasks or writing just your business content.
That's a really good point. And I find that mind maps work really well for me because I can get down a lot of ideas without having to focus too much on the writing, or else I get kind of caught up in the technicality of what I'm writing rather than just getting those ideas out there. So practice makes, I like how this has changed. Practice makes progress now. It used to be practice makes perfect when we were kids. I like it better this way. And I feel more confident in telling my kids that too. But it's absolutely true. And the way I know it's true is because flashback to about 1.5 years ago, I was in a car accident and the deposition kept getting pushed back because of COVID. And I was so nervous about it. Then I logged on and the lawyer messaged me later. He's like, you did such an amazing job. And I said, I've been talking to people on Zoom like every day for like the last 30 days, at least an hour a day. So practice. And I did an awesome job, apparently. Before this, I would have been a complete wreck. Now, let's say we have a message, Zoe, when I put out there, and we feel very passionately about it, but we hesitate. You said people hesitate. How do we know what is okay to share, what makes us authentic to our audience, and what is like, ooh, they really shouldn't have said that?
Yeah. So that again, learning that fine line definitely comes with the practice of writing and putting things out there. But, I encourage people to think of their whole story and think about, we've all had experiences in our life, whether, they're positive or they're negative, whether we've had loss in our life or trauma or health issues or, whatever sort of things that kind of take us by surprise and we have to deal with and get through. And it's okay, I think, for me, and this is my opinion, to share something like that generally, but you want to focus on not the suffering piece of it, right? Or the things that make people feel bad. You want to find the things that make people connect because they've had the same sort of vulnerability. And this is tricky. This is a tricky thing for me to say because if someone feels bad for you, they might choose to do business with you based on their empathy for whatever happened. But if you want long-term clients, you have to get them to connect with you because you had these experiences, you learned from them, right? You got through them and you learned from them. And it's those skills and experiences and tools that make you who you are and make you capable of delivering what you do in the way that only you can do it. So, you want to keep focused on, well, yeah, I had some experiences, I had this in my family or this in my life, but what I learned was X. And, because I learned X, I choose to run my business this way. And this is my philosophy. And that takes practice, because we're writing about ourselves. We're writing about our own soft spots and vulnerabilities. But I was saying to someone the other day that if you're sitting around the table with a bunch of girlfriends and you've all had a glass of wine, that's the type of conversation we have, right? That kind of relaxed, like, this is who I am. I went through this stuff, but I'm capable of doing this now and I can help you too.
I find that wonderful. And I think it's great that you said with a glass of wine, because that's totally what it takes for me to be totally, completely honest. No, I'm just kidding. But I think a lot of people can relate that oftentimes we hold ourselves back. And if those of you who have experienced this, you know what I'm talking about. As soon as you do have like a little bit of wine or something, all of a sudden you're much more carefree. And it's because all of those limitations and all those inhibitions that we put on ourselves are gone. Now, sometimes those things are good, but sometimes in little pieces, it's good to let down those defenses and be yourself. And,
yes. And, I want to say too, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. For some people that happens like when they're out in nature, right? Or if they're on vacation and away from their everyday scene. So, I like to have that glass of wine, but, other people, there's plenty of ways to connect with that sort of communication. So you can get that stuff out.
Absolutely. And to your point, the more you do it, the easier it gets. So at first you might need that glass of wine. Pretty soon you'll be an old hat at it and you'll be just communicating, apparently. And also to your point, I have discovered different ways to kind of get myself in that Zen zone, so to speak. And one thing that really is important to me is timing. I write best, like creatively, authentically, not business, at night. Like I might wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh my God, I have to write this down. This is amazing. But if I tried to do that during the day with the busyness of work and my kids and all that stuff, it would never happen. So if it doesn't work for somebody during the day, just play around with it. You can get there.
Yeah. That's a great point. Like, so for me, I'm a morning person, so I can write in the morning. And I find that probably more people can do it in the morning, but there are people who can do it at night. And so everybody has to find that sweet spot of what's the best time for you, to sit down and really get your thoughts down on paper. Is it at the end of the day because your workday is done and you can relax? Is it at night because you're alone and it's quiet? Are you freshest in the morning? So it's different for everybody.
Absolutely. And so to kind of recap what you said, or to kind of reiterate what I heard, is that you need to connect to that authentic self, to your story, to your message, but you need to do so in a way that emphasizes the good. And while you're being vulnerable with what actually happened, you need to make sure that the focus is on the lesson and how you implement that in who it is that you are and what you do and how you help your clients. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Let's see, what other questions do I have for you? Because this is an amazing conversation. When you're writing for clients, can you tell me what is the difference between what you would write on maybe like a landing page versus what you would write on just a regular website page versus what you would write on a blog? Like, I know that there's different kinds of different styles of writing for different things, but it's hard to distinguish between them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very true. I agree. So first off, I'm going to say a blog is like an opportunity for storytelling, right? You have an idea. Maybe it's not sales driven. Maybe it's just some personal philosophy that you have or thoughts that you put together. Kind of a way of warming up your audience. They get to know you through your blog. And a blog is a wonderful tool, by the way. I feel like people should blog because you can break it up into social media. You can, use case studies as a blog. They can go out in your email. They can go, you can just use them in so many ways. They're just very versatile. So anyway, I digress about the blogs, but, website pages are like, it's kind of like inviting someone into your home, right? So your home page is there and it's really going to tell them about who you are and what you do. And maybe you're going to have like a really great statement there, your tagline, and, your about page is about you. And that's going to be a little more conversational. So they feel that they're connecting to you, even though it's on, the internet. And So it's also a place where they can kind of passively look all around and see the things that they want to learn about you. So although it's sales driven and you want to create a journey, right? You have to think about your client, like where are they going to go from the homepage? What would they want to read next? And that depends really on what type of work that you do. Are you selling products and they want to see the pricing of your products? Are you selling services and they want to learn about you first before they choose to work with you? And so that of course ties into like your calls to action and such, but it's more of a place where you're saying, welcome, let me tell you a bit about me, what I do, how I can offer that to you. Sales pages to me are so much fun because there's that psychological piece to it. I mean, it's all psychological, but on the sales page, you want to say, imagine if you did this thing better than anybody else and you made $1 million and you gave your family everything they needed and the world was perfect. Wouldn't you love that? Or what would you do to get that? Right. And then you can say, this program teaches you this and X, Y, Z. And then it's, but, if you have these problems or you struggle with this, or you're not sure how to do X, or you're insecure about that, this program, you'll learn how to do all of these other things. It's kind of like this really cool back and forth of facts and feelings, right? Where you want to trigger, like, how do they feel about this topic? Where they go, oh God, I really need help with this. And you say, well, that's great because I can help you. I know how to help you. And then you say the factual things like this program has this. We're going to have phone calls and handouts and co-work sessions and whatever. And at the end, you'll be able to write this content or organize your planner or have a content calendar, and you give them the facts of what they're actually going to walk away with. You give them a couple of options to join in at any point. And it's just really about the journey through that page, really, which is kind of like the website, but it's, definitely playing off people's emotions.
Interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and reiterate it again because this is the way that I learn. What I heard was on your website, on your homepage, it's really a chance for you to communicate with your audience, to share who it is that you really are, particularly the blog. And so you want to treat that kind of conversationally as you were leading them through the journey of you and the flow that you see them taking through your site. But on a sales page, it's totally different. You want to find those pain points of your target audience, your avatar, so to speak, and what do they want? What are their problems, and how your product, service, solution is fixing them for them or helping them with it. Did I get that right?
Right. And how they can't live without it, really.
Yes. But I think that's really important to make that distinction. And to your point about the blogs, it kind of ties into what we were talking about social media earlier. I read a statistic, and I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but it was something like tweets are irrelevant after like 23 minutes. Like Facebook and Instagram are like within the hours, the posts are irrelevant. The ones that stood the test of time longest were Pinterest and blogs. Blogs are out there forever and they drive people to your website. So yes, definitely start a blog.
Yes, I agree. And Pinterest, they say, is underrated, that there's a lot of SEO that comes from using Pinterest. I have a Pinterest page, but I'm not active on it, but that would be the next thing I would go to if I was looking to take on another platform.
It's funny that you say that because I literally just started a Pinterest board last night because I have also heard the same thing. And someone that I interviewed told me that. And I was like, that's genius. I should totally do this. So yes, Pinterest is one of those very underrated tools that we can all use for free. So it's excellent. You mentioned that you do newsletters for your clients. What type of things should we include in a newsletter? How do we know what to communicate via a newsletter that we send to our clients or potential clients, as it were?
So there's a couple different things. Right now, there's a big trend on doing, sales funnels with your email and doing like nurture sequences. So sometimes people just need a welcome sequence. So, you have a lead magnet or something that you're giving for free to your clients in exchange for them giving their email. And then you're going to send them maybe 3 to 5 emails, one every couple of days, just so they can get to know you. You can continue to offer them some value, to connect with you on your platforms. And eventually maybe hopefully work with those people. As far as email newsletters, sometimes I'll write the body of the newsletter, or sometimes I will, write the blog that goes into the newsletter for folks. But I know in my own newsletter, I'll put, things that are happening on my calendar. For me, I will write a blog and I'll put that in there. Oftentimes I will spotlight a partner that I work with. Like for me, I work with a lot of graphic designers and branding designers and things like that, or other people that I know that are, good networking resources for me. I like to spotlight them in my newsletter. They really say, keep it short and simple. There's different things about pictures now in email newsletters. They say sometimes because they have pictures, they go to spam, and other people say, no, that's not true. So, not too many pictures. And of course, all the ways that they can contact you and some call to action. Of course, there's always a call to action there.
Wonderful. That actually gives me a lot of insight. So thank you. But while we were talking about websites, you mentioned that you do bios and then you also do website content. So how does a bio, like one that we would put in either social media or more importantly, our speaker sheets, things like that, how does that differ from an about me page, or is it the same?
It generally has a lot of the same information, but a bio is something that really needs to be tweaked depending on where you're putting it. Like what you're going to put on your about on LinkedIn is going to be maybe different than what you put on Facebook or Instagram, particularly because you're limited to a certain number of characters in those places. So you have to think about what's most valuable and what do you want to say. Or even when you just see the very beginning of the bio, like, what do you want that first sentence to say if that's all people are going to see up front? But an about page is kind of personal, right? It's like, welcome to who I am, to my business, to what I do, to how I live. And so you're going to write about yourself. You're going to say, hey, I'm so-and-so. And, this is what I like to see happen for my clients. And this is how I got here. And, just kind of like an introduction to who you are. Again, the bio can be like right now I'm writing a bio for a client who's changing jobs and they are going to send that bio out to the staff. So the staff is kind of introduced to her. It's a much more professional type of bio with different language. It's also in the third person. So all of those other things, like unless somebody really requests it, your about page, your social platforms, even LinkedIn now, all of the abouts are in first person. That sometimes is tricky too, is turning one to the other. And the speaker sheet is almost like its own little animal. I've done a couple of those for folks and I actually really enjoy it because some of them are so overpacked. And it's like, how do you make a speaker sheet? Somebody's going to look through 100 speaker sheets, right, to pick a speaker. And we're not going to meet in person first. And we're probably not going to meet on Zoom first. So all they have is that speaker sheet. Are they going to be able to see those clear and succinct points about you? Or is there too much? Is it too busy?
That makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much for all that valuable information. Like I said, once again, you're talking and I'm like thinking in my brain, like, ooh, okay, I need to change that and that because it is so essential. Like you said,
right.
It's like a resume, really, if you think about it. And
it is.
And you're applying for that speaker job, so to speak.
Yes.
That was redundant.
So I do have one thing I just want to go back to because we mentioned the ICA, everybody's, ideal client avatar. And one of the things I've been talking about that also goes along like with the deeper story thing is that we want to think about our internal client avatar. Like, we collect all this data to create that general ICA, like where do they live? What type of car do they like to drive? What type of food do they eat? When do they exercise? Do they have kids? Are they married? All of that stuff. But that internal avatar of like, what do they feel badly about? Or where do they feel that they're limited? Or, what hangs them up? Or, more personal stuff, because it's that personal stuff that you kind of want to connect with and say, you know what, I have that personal stuff too, so I can help you get through that. All the other stuff is still important because you want to know those things, but you also kind of want to know, like, what are they really struggling with? It doesn't really matter what they're wearing or what kind of food they eat. It matters, like, what are they struggling with and how do they feel about it?
That makes a lot of sense. So it's not just knowing their functional pain points, like what do they need help with, but really what are their real pain points, like deep inside, what are they really hurting about? And I've heard that a really good way to get into that kind of mindset is to do a little research into Reddit or platforms like that where people tend to complain. And because that's where people go to rant about what's wrong with the world. But when you're looking for that type of information, how do you know where to look? Is that a good strategy at all?
So I think a lot of it has to be intuitive, right? I think, again, discovering initially who that ideal client is and then thinking more about it. Like, where do they come from? Maybe what type of life have they had? Or I don't know. For me, a lot of it is intuitive or thinking about if I needed somebody with these skills, what would I be lacking in that I needed those skills, right? Where would my weaknesses be that I would need somebody else to teach me about those strengths? Just like I have strengths that I can teach somebody else, that they're not, not everybody has the same strengths. And I guess it's finding those people that don't have the same strengths as you.
Right. And at least the way it was for me, I think a lot of us have that. We want to start really broad because we don't want to cut anybody out. We want to do business with everybody. But once I started niching down, to use an industry term, I found that the more and more I really thought about it, the avatar really looked a lot like me. Do you find that to be true for a lot of your clients, or am I just
sometimes
weird?
Yeah, no, sometimes I think that's true. And I think you can look at certain industries, like for instance, yoga teachers. I mean, I love yoga and I love to go. And I feel like people who become yoga teachers do it because it's what they need. They need yoga. Right? For me, I obviously need writing as a form of communication for whatever reason in my life. I feel like people do kind of figure out what it is that they need. And then they're like, oh, I got to teach these other people
right,
how to get this thing, people who need it. So
exactly. Because no one's ever alone in their struggles, I think. So you have to just connect with those people that have what you need. And you've given me so much fabulous information. I want to talk about what you do for your business. When somebody comes to work with you, how much do they need to know? Because let's say I wanted you to do my speaker sheet, my about page, all the stuff on my website. Do I need to know what I want to put on there, or how do you work with them?
So that's a great question. I like people to have some clarity, obviously, about what they're doing, and to maybe have done a little bit of work on like mission and vision and message, and just have a general idea. It's helpful if people have notes, but I also find that if they have too many notes, I have to kind of weed through them anyway. And I always start with a questionnaire. I'll send somebody a questionnaire, and then I'll ask some more questions based on the answers to that questionnaire. We'll have an hour strategy call where I just literally let them like word vomit over the hour. And I just take copious notes, because for me, it's like, what is the person's energy? What are they wearing? What are their mannerisms? What language are they using? Are they serious? Are they soft-spoken? Do they, are they humorous? What kind of language am I going to need to portray that for them? Because sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, how are you ever going to capture my voice? And I'm like, well, I just captured it down on these 4 pages of notes. And oftentimes people say things and they'll repeat like the same phrases. And I'll be like, that is clearly an important phrase that this person wants to say. And they are not even aware of that. So that's usually how we start. So I think you just need to be kind of clear in your general message. And usually people are at that point. And then I get started. And so I guess one of the things I want to say is some of the things that people should know. So when you sit down to work with a writer, you have to give a little bit of creative license, right? It's scary. You're handing it over. This is your baby you're developing, and you're handing it over to somebody else to explain. But it's like, for me, it's a very organic process. I can't say to you, all right, I'm going to do this in 2 days. I'm going to get it back to you, and I wait until I play around with words. I do some research. I ask people what websites they like in their field, what websites they don't like, words they want to avoid. And I start to craft, a message. And then as soon as I have a draft that's decent enough to share, I'll share it. So the next step is having time to read that draft. So oftentimes people think, oh, I don't have to do anything for this. And it's like, well, yes, you do, because you have to edit, and then you have to give me feedback, and we're going to go back and forth. And I can only work as quickly as you give me that feedback. And sometimes people don't schedule that time. They don't realize that they're going to need that time. The next thing is that people don't want to hurt my feelings. And I find this with so many people, they're so worried about being polite. So I say, my rule is, you can't throw food at me. You can't curse or yell or call me names. But other than that, you really need to say, this works, this doesn't work. I want this word. I don't like this word. Can this be longer? Can this be shorter? Otherwise, I have no guidance, and I don't know where to go. So, all feedback is really welcome. And I guess the last thing is that people worry if they're like, when I'm writing for you, it's your document. So if I send it to you and there's like 2 words that you want to change, it's okay for you to change them, to go in and change them. I'm happy to do it for my clients, but then you have to send me an email, say, can you please change these 2 words? And then you have to wait for me to change them before I get it back to you. So, when you're working with someone, it's your work and it's your words. And I appreciate that people, want to say to me, I want to change this. Is that okay? But then feel free to go ahead and make changes to your own stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. So what I'm hearing is that people need to have clarity over their basic message. Don't come in there knowing nothing. But once you have that clarity, you want to make sure you have maybe some written notes, maybe in your head, but not too much, because you need to give the writer some room to work. And then once you are working with the writer, it's important to schedule time to have that communication and to really hone in and hone down on that, what you want that product to be. And then feedback is super important, because clearly, even though you might be amazing, I'm pretty sure you don't read my mind. So I have to tell you what it is that is important to me and have that honest and kind communication. Did I get all that?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So now that everyone in the audience wants to work with you, because I know I do, where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
So I have a website. It's www.that'saspade.com. I am on Facebook as That's a Spade, and Instagram also. I'm in LinkedIn as Beth Knaus, and email is bethknaus@that'saspade.com. So I'd be happy to take some time to talk to anybody who's interested.
Absolutely. And everyone who's listening to this, especially on the podcast, all of that information will be on the show notes. So you don't have to write it down just now. But I wanted to ask, what is the significance of That's a Spade? Because that feels like a message.
Yes, it is. So I was raised by my dad, and my dad had a very direct way of communicating, but with kindness and patience. And so he would always say, let's call a spade a spade. Let's not candy coat it. Let's not dance around it. Take off your rosy colored glasses and just say it for what it is,
That's wonderful. I love that. And I'm so glad I asked, because clearly that meant something to you. And I love that you incorporated that into the message that you really put out there every day. And yeah, it's that vulnerable piece that connects with the business piece. Nice job. Before we wrap up, is there anything that I may have missed, or did you have any final thoughts?
The one thing you touched on earlier, you were talking about niching down. And I think that the best way for people to do that is to put their clear communication out there, because you said, we're always afraid, like, are we going to push people away? Are we leaving people out? And the answer is you kind of want to leave people out. You don't want to dilute your message by trying to reach everybody. You really want to put out your true thoughts so that you attract those people you want to work with. You're going to have fun working with them, rather than ending up with some clients that are okay, but maybe you're not working to your potential with them and getting the same fulfillment. So, step into the spotlight and don't be afraid to speak directly to your people. You'll still get some other clients, but your work life will be a little richer for it.
Wow, that's wonderful. I feel like I needed to hear that, because I could hear it. I could feel it in my heart, like welling up. Okay. I felt like the Grinch, like, but it's true. And I find that the more I do it, the more I realize how true that is, because it really is important to communicate your message. Everyone has one. I promise you they do. And there's somebody out there who needs to hear it. Beth, I want to thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I know I learned a lot, and I know our listeners did too.
Such a pleasure and an honor to be on the podcast with you, Veronica.
Thank you so much for joining us, guys. And I'll be back to wrap up the show right after this. Hi, guys. Welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I hope you got as much information and value out of that interview as I did. I can't wait to connect with Beth and see what we can do with my speaker sheet. Don't worry, I'll post it when she's all done. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Now remember, be productive, be successful, be joyful, but more importantly, be yourself. And I'll see you next time on the Biz Essentials.
You've been listening to the Biz Essentials. Thanks for listening to the show. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information, learning how to be productive, be successful, be joyful, and more importantly, be yourself, and turning your dreams into successful passion projects. By listening to this show, you've already set into motion the most important part, starting. So it's important to catch the next episode. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. In the meantime, hook up with us on social media at Veronica Ventures and at the Biz Essentials. Till next time, this is the Biz Essentials.
So here's today's quote of the day. Always stay true to yourself and never let what somebody says distract you from your goals. Michelle Obama. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time on the Biz Essentials. Bye.